In order to make a plush character, you'll need 2 5x5 pieces of felt, a small piece of black felt, a 5x5 piece of paper, a needle, a spool of thread, a pair of scissors, and stuffing. Additionally, if available, you may also want to use pin needles and a threading device to aid in your making process. Before starting, finalize your sketch. Try brainstorming first and then draw your final design on the 5x5 piece of paper. Once you have that done, you can begin. First, combine the 5x5 piece of paper and the 2 5x5 pieces of felt into one stack. Because I have pin needles available, I'm going to poke several of these into my stack to secure it temporarily. Next, start to cut out the perimeter of your design with your pair of scissors. Once that is done, cut out the eyes, mouth, and any other facial features from the black felt. You should now have all of your felt cut out. Now you'll need to thread your needle. In order to thread a needle, you will need a needle, a spool of thread, and a pair of scissors. First, take your needle and pull a piece of thread through the needle head. Next, pull the end of the thread back towards the spool of thread until you get a good length. Pinch the 2 pieces of thread together. Cut the piece of thread still connected to the spool with your pair of scissors. Next, carefully loop the thread and pinch it together. Take the loose end and pull it through the loop until it tightens and forms a knot. Form loops and tighten approximately 10 to 20 times until you form a knot that is so large that it will not be pulled through fabric once you sew with it. Last, cut the end with a pair of scissors. You now have a needle that is ready for sewing. Once your needle has been threaded, you are ready to start sewing. For the next step, you'll want to sew the facial features onto the first layer of felt. I'm going to start with one of my plush character's eyes. First, pinch the 2 pieces of felt together and pull the needle through the back. Then, you will take your needle and pull the needle through the front. This pattern, pulling the needle through the front and back, will repeat indefinitely. Don't sew too close to the edge. You want to make sure that the facial features are sewed on securely. The final stitch should always be pulled through the back of your felt so that you can tie your knot in a place where it will be less visible. But don't tie it just yet because we have more facial features to sew on. In my case, the next facial feature to sew on was the second eye, followed by the mouth. Once you have all the facial features on the front sewn on, you will need to complete your knot. To do this, poke the needle through the front and then pull the needle through to the back side. Now create 10 to 20 small loops as close to the exit hole as possible, pinching the 2 pieces of thread together and pulling the needle through the loop. Do this as many times as you need to until the knot is so big that it will not be pulled through to the other side. Then cut the thread with your pair of scissors. The front side is now complete. Next, we will need to sew the front and back sides together. You will need to rethread your needle first to do this. Now, hold your 2 pieces of felt together and pull the needle through the back. Pull the needle through and begin to sew the 2 pieces together. Keeping a small distance between your entry and exit holes will create a higher quality, more carefully sewn look. However, sewing with smaller stitches will take longer. Thankfully, this medium is very forgiving to small errors. Errors will add a quaint and sentimental appearance to your design, so don't worry if you make mistakes. Keep in mind that you may run out of thread. If this happens, you will simply need to knot your thread in the back, cut it, and then rethread your needle. For my design, I needed to rethread my needle 1 additional time. When your design is approximately 80% complete, you will need to add stuffing. Tighten your thread after you do this, as the stuffing likely made the thread become loose. Continue to sew and stuff in a bit more of stuffing once the design is 90% done. Then, when you are done sewing, create a large knot and cut your thread. You now have a completed design. There are so many possible designs. You may want to explore more in the future.